Welcome to No Password Required, a monthly conversation that introduces you to some of the top talent in the world of cybersecurity.
Hello and welcome to No Password Required, a podcast dedicated to exploring the minds and personalities that make up the field of cybersecurity. I'm your host, Jack Clavey. Filling in for Ernie Ferraresso today is our former guest, Tashya Denose. Tashya is the co-host of the Do We Belong Here podcast, so we're in great hands today. On the show, we're going to chat with Joey deVilla, also known as the Accordion Guy. Professionally, Joey is a Senior R&D Content Engineer at Auth0, a division of Okta. Joey's workday responsibilities have a couple of facets, including writing, developing, and creating technical content resources. After hours, he loves spending time with his wife, playing his accordion, and sharing his nerdy take on his two personal blogs. Joey, we look forward to a great conversation, but first, hello to my co-host, Tashya.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here again. So we have a great topic today. AI is everywhere, and it is taking the place of many important things, such as law. DoNotPay Lawyers offers $1 million to let AI argue before the Supreme Court in their place. So artificial intelligence is taking over, and we are going to chat about how we feel about that today. So
this company is crazy, Tashya. It's been around for a little while. There's a guy, I think he might even be not even 30 yet, but he's the head of this company, and it started out. It's an AI that's sort of built off ChatGPT, and it does. I think its first thing was helping people dispute traffic tickets, and it's also got other uses where it can help you if you pay like a monthly subscription fee, and it helps you cut the line when you've got to call the DMV. It'll wait for you if you've got a call to make an airline reservation and things like that. But they've got this $1 million challenge. They want to be in the ear of an attorney at the Supreme Court. It's one thing for AI to take away, traditionally repetitive jobs. It's another thing for them to come for the oral advocacy in the Supreme Court. I'm a little worried about this.
It's very interesting, as you know what I mean. So I've watched a lot of videos and read a lot of articles on lawyers themselves saying they put in, ask questions and got information back from ChatGPT that would take them months and months to do research on, coming back in like 30, 40 seconds, getting the paper done. People are using this application. Have you used it? Have you tried it yet?
I've played around with it, but not for legal work. But
yeah.
I like the idea of, it's at one point, lawyers were writing things out and handing them into the court. Abraham Lincoln would write out legal briefs by hand and hand them in. And then we started using typewriters. Then you go from typewriters to word processing, then to really, and we use a variety in our law firm, a variety of fill in the blank kind of templates for at least first drafts of some stuff. And we use a lot of AI, what you could describe as AI assisted legal research. But that's all within pretty well-worn, almost legal library databases. This is entirely new because when you use these sort of, I guess call them widgets, they actually go and interact with third parties. You're filling in a couple of screens, and then they go and actually get you a refund on an overpayment. They cancel a credit card you didn't want. It's actually taking action at your direction, which is a little different.
Behalf.
So it's scary they said it was coming, right? We've all been talking about the white collar workforce getting replaced. And if these things work the way they do, a lot of the work, I think it's targeting, I guess, first things that are repetitive. That maybe you wouldn't hire a lawyer for, but their latest $1 million challenge, I don't think anyone's going to take them up on it, but
I was going to ask, it doesn't sound like you support the $1 million challenge. You're not going to take it up. As we'll say, not the Supreme Court. Would you take it? How about your local circuit court?
I worry about disclosures. I worry about if I'm doing that. Sometimes you think about, okay, I'll write down the arguments I might make, and you might read a portion of your argument. That's not great advocacy, but this in some ways is not really different from that. The part I'd be interested in is I'd love to do a mock of this. it's in your ear and it's responding to the questions from the judges. That's the part that is the AI part, I think. So if it does that, that's really, I mean, there were discussions about this with Google Glass when it came out. What was it, 10 years, a while ago. If you brought Google Glass into like a negotiation or something, and it was like, detecting whether the other person's temperature was going up or heart rate was going up, could that be? And there were ethical conversations about it. I don't know. I think if I were to do something like this in kind of a fun and experimental way, you wouldn't want to do it on behalf of a client. You'd have to do it, I think.
Yeah, do it on your own.
In a speech you were giving, or in a maybe a board presentation where you're answering questions from a board, and they know you're doing it sort of as a. You could see a tech company board kind of being interested in this.
Yeah, being interested because it's everywhere. I've downloaded the 2 AI art apps on my phone, and I have I've just paid $20 for a year to have an AI assistant. So I don't think I need it. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
What are they supposed to do?
I have no clue.
Awesome.
I'm not going to lie. I have no clue. I don't know what it's going to do, but I've played around with ChatGPT, and because it's become so popular, it's down sometimes. And in my first world ways of wanting to have access to something that I don't even need access to in 10 minutes, I said, well, let me see if there's any apps out there. And sure enough, there was.
That's awesome.
So I don't know what it is. There's more to come on that, Jack. Maybe I'll get you the app so you can try to challenge in the boardroom at work one day to see if it actually works. But
I always think if it worked, everyone would be using it. But maybe they are, and I'm just not. Like, if it was that kind of an aid to actually negotiating or actually being, like the thing that we all pride ourselves on, that we say, well, a computer can never think on their feet like we can. Mm-hmm. But I think the reality is a computer is probably much, much, much better than we are and more accurate in thinking on their feet.
Yeah.
But it would be great to think. I mean, think about how many times now we use the equivalent of it. Like, I just don't tolerate not knowing the answer to a factual question anymore. Like, if someone asks me, like, who won the World Series in 2010, I will immediately look it up on my phone. Right.
Yeah. So it doesn't even have to be factual. I will look up an opinion and be like, well, 86% of the people like green better than blue. You're wrong. There's no, I'm on the same page as you. You need the way we're addicted to having instant access is so interesting.
So if somebody could prompt me, and right, if my phone knows that I'm going to ask it, so if it's, let's say I turn my phone on so it's always listening, and it knows that anytime I ask a fact question and I don't know the answer, if it just popped it up immediately and I might glance at it, it would save me the step of asking it. In a lot of ways, like, I think that's what these sort of AI chat-based programs are doing. It's anticipating likely questions and then giving the answer. It just cuts all the steps out. I think you can see it from just an architecture standpoint being really effective. What's the joke? Like, the only thing worse than an AI the only thing worse than a driverless car is all other drivers. Because there's accidents with AI, but it's like so much less than with a distracted
so much better
human,
than it's
who's smoking a vape pen and texting while trying to drive a giant car.
Exactly. I think the key is what I've been talking, I think one, people aren't using it because they don't understand it and they don't know that it's as available as it is. What I talk to my friends that people are scared of it as well. Yeah. So I think the key is it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to get bigger. I think we've got to figure out if jobs are going to be replaced, what is the new thing that we're going to do for ourselves to make ourselves as a human being important in a space where you might not be?
Right. That's the equity issue. It was supposed to be that technology would come. This is a deeper thought than we can unpack, but like the idea that technology was supposed to make our lives ones of leisure. Instead, it's just making people unemployed. So
and uncomfortable.
So I think for our audience listening, it sounds like keep doing what you're doing, because with AI and chatbots, they're always going to need people to build and design them, program them, troubleshoot them, sell them, fix them, it's the jobs they're taking. When we get AI building AI, then of course, it's all over. But so until that comes, I think.
Jack just made my chest tight. It was sounding so good.
Right, but eventually they'll all just be servicing themselves. It'll be like a Terminator situation. It'll be a Skynet situation. But until then, DoNotPay says that they can get you out of some bills. So kind of a cool thing. We'll have to keep an eye on it. I did take a look. Part of me thought, what is the sort of legal ethics of this? And I don't have an opinion on that, but I did take a look at the terms and conditions on the website, which is usually where you put out there the legal relationship between the users on the one hand and the company on the other. And they have essentially, they say they're not a law firm and they're a platform for legal information and self-help. So they're basically saying, even though they're advertising, I think says in a couple of places, the AI law firm or things like that, they are clearly disclaiming that they are a law firm. So maybe they can do a lot of these things. I think if you're in a courtroom situation though, and it's only the AI talking through the lawyer, that carries some closer questions. So the legal ethics are ever evolving. So I think they're going to have to come up with some kind of response to this. And there was some fooling around with it back when Google Glass was out, but I got to go maybe dust off what those articles said back then. We've had a lull in this kind of thinking for a while in the law.
Yeah, I think that's there's a lot going on with it because I read once that recently there's a gentleman that created an AI children's book. He did not write it. He asked like ChatGPT to write the book, then went to the AI art developer and then asked them to develop the art for it. And then he just started selling it on Amazon. Okay. So a lot of children's authors are like, this is so upsetting. But then a lot of other people are like, well, the thought that he had to do it, no one else had it. So it's his intellectual property for thinking how to utilize something like this. You can't be mad at him and nothing's there to protect to stop him, I definitely Googled because you guys might see my book coming out, my children's book.
I could finally get my book about dinosaurs going to the moon that I've been wanting,
See?
I like that idea of even not for like big consumption, but if like a kid has a crazy idea about like a story, just using the chat module to create it is kind of neat, or if you have an idea for, I want AI created music. Right. So, we'll be asking, I think, a good question later on about to our guest about the rock band that they would want to form. But you can imagine, I want a rock band that has, this guy on drums, this woman singing, and this person playing the guitar, and I want a 3.5-minute single. Right. At some point, you're going to get that, and it's going to be pretty neat to see, what it would be like to see. To see all these kind of famous styles being mixed together. And maybe that's already happening. If one of our listeners knows about it, send us a message
that'd be
on
awesome.
the website.
Well, with that being said, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we are going to talk to Joey deVilla about his passion for making his local community a nerd haven.
Looking for more no password required content? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at NoPasswordPod.
Welcome back. Our guest today is Joey deVilla, a complete badass on the accordion and the Senior Research and Development Content Engineer at Auth0. Joey, welcome to the No Password Required podcast.
Glad to be here.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your career path and how it led you to your current position at Auth0?
Sure. It's a series of accidents, actually. I was doing a very extended Van Wilder-esque university career. So about 7 years into a 4-year degree. And I was a DJ at the campus engineering pub, Queen's University in Canada. And I was broadcasting some, while I was playing tunes, I had some video wallpaper on the screen, and it was from this multimedia company in Toronto, just some some videos showing their work, because it was kind of fascinating to look at while you're on the dance floor. And somebody came up to me and said, I know those people, they're hiring. And so I took a train to Toronto the next day to interview with them. And I said, you have to give me a job. I want to do multimedia. I don't want to do mainframe programming for banks, which was probably the biggest opportunity at the time during the pre-web era. And after a few job interviews, which was mostly hanging out with them for beer at several Toronto pubs, they decided to hire me. And from there, it's just been a series of accidents. What happened a little bit later on was that I was working at a little consultancy, and a friend of mine, Cory Doctorow, sci-fi author and also EFF spokesmodel, actually said, "Hey, you know what? Do you want to work on electronic gift certificates, or do you want to change the world? I'm starting a startup." And this was late 1999, and I said, "I want to start the startup." And so I joined his company. They sent me to Linux World Expo to gather some information. And while I was there, I brought my accordion with me. And I was hanging out with the Slashdot people, and there were some CNN people wandering around, and I just decided to leap in front of the cameras and just play a number. Managed to parlay that into an interview. And by the time I got back to Toronto to report to the office, they said, "We saw the interview. From now on, you are doing developer relations." And since then, I've either been doing making software or talking to people who make software doing developer relations. Auth0 was a very lucky break. It happened when my job working at a company here in Tampa evaporated. Because of COVID, they had to lay off half the staff, and I stumbled across the ad for Auth0, and they were looking for a developer relations person, and I went through the interview process, and it worked out really well. And here I am. Basically, they've changed my title. It is now Senior Developer Advocate. I am at the Auth0 part of Okta. So Okta and Auth0 used to be competitors in the same space, but doing very different stuff. It all boils down to authentication and authorization, or login as a service. You really should not be building your own login anymore because of the security arms race. It's always you make a move, bad parties make a counter move, and so on. So yeah, it's basically my job to show people how to use our services to control access and permissions in their applications, particularly mobile and IoT. So I like to call my job strange new platforms.
Yeah, what are some of the ones that, like, on the IoT side, what are some of the ones that are challenging or that you found interesting on that side?
Well, for the most part, it's largely been Raspberry Pi based things, and we've been talking about, and it's largely talking about using the Raspberry Pi as a front end to talk to some kind of service that you have to get permission to access. So one thing, one article that I tech edited and helped put together was one where you would have this bathroom mirror with a Raspberry Pi in it. It's one of those mirrors that you can slightly see through. So there's a monitor behind it. So while you're shaving or doing your hair or your makeup, you can catch the news or see bulletins because this little screen behind the mirror is flashing you updates, so you can get your text messages that way. So yeah, it's a smart mirror. It is a goofy thing right now, but I figure, 50 years from now, people will complain when they don't have a smart mirror in their hotel room or their own bathroom.
The Raspberry Pi now, it's used for so many different kind of cool things. And my son goes to a little coding camp, and they have just a bucket of Raspberry Pis where they've lost the password for them, and they're just waiting for someone to come and claim them. Which is it's a decent sized piece of technology for to just lose the password for. But they've got a little bucket. Is this yours? And where's the password? So I like the idea of working with that and making that a little bit easier to use.
Yeah, it's a fun machine, and you have to remember that inside a Raspberry Pi is maybe the power of a laptop from about 10 years ago, and it's amazing that it's packed into something that's about the size of I was going to say pack of cigarettes, but I don't know if I can't even remember the last time I saw a pack of cigarettes.
I think it's
a deck of cards.
4 vape pens taped together, I think is what they're
Okay,
saying.
there we go. Kids today.
Can you back us up a little bit? So,
Sure.
we picked up your story when you're on your Van Wilder sort of exchange, but at some point you had to learn enough to even think about a career in mainframe work. When did you first start working with computers, either on the hardware side or the software side? Like, where did the interest capture you?
That was seventh grade.
Okay.
Seventh grade. My very good friend at the time, Pavel Rozalski, his dad is an engineer, and he was into computers, and I thought they were fascinating. So we worked on a science fair project together and got all the way to the finals with it, building and NAND and NOR gates and demonstrating how they worked using stuff that we'd cannibalized out of old electronics and some relays that we managed to buy from an electronic surplus store in downtown Toronto.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then since then I've just been into the programming. So I had an Apple IIe and mastered BASIC and Pascal that way. And then later on, when I went to university, my first attempt at a major was electrical engineering. And second attempt at a major, which was successful, was computer science.
What advice would you give to folks who are starting out? Maybe they're learning their first programming language and they're thinking about career paths. What advice would you give them for their, as they approach college in terms of maybe how to turn that into a major and turn that into a career?
Well, I guess at this point, I would say take advantage of the fact that right now we live in an age that's an embarrassment of riches for this kind of knowledge. For starters, I mean, there are just on YouTube alone, there are plenty of amazing courses. In fact, I've just been skimming over Andrei Karpathy's YouTube videos. He used to be, until last year, he was the head of AI for Tesla. And before that, he founded a little company called OpenAI, who made a little application called ChatGPT. You may have heard of it.
That's great. Yeah.
So that's his baby. And he's got one video where he's walking you through building a baby version of ChatGPT that generates Shakespeare plays, or at least Shakespearean dialogue. So awesome. I'm looking at that, and I'm also going, you know what? This reminds me of way back when I was in high school, and I was trying to replicate the program, the original the OG chatbot, Eliza. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm not.
It's a psychotherapy. It's a psychotherapy one. It tried to simulate one of those psychotherapists who throws everything back at you, like you say something.
Yes, I know. What you're
How does that make you feel? That kind of thing, and tries to talk you into talking yourself into figuring.
I've read some of those transcripts because there was some with the newer chatbots getting a lot of coverage. They were revisiting that, and I think the Wall Street Journal had some transcripts of the old Eliza conversations, and it looked like how I sometimes talk to my wife. That happened at work. How do you feel about insert thing that happened at work?
Exactly. So Eliza is Eliza in the end is a bunch of stock phrases. What it tries to do is detect, the pattern that matches what you gave it and just throw it back at you with, fill in the blank.
Oh, wow.
How awesome.
And when I was totally fascinated by that when I was in high school, and I was going, oh, this is great. And then I heard about, there's another one that came after Eliza. I don't know if it was late 60s or early 70s, called Perry, who, and it modeled a paranoid schizophrenic patient. And I think in the mid 70s, what they did was they had the two programs, Eliza and Perry, talk to each other.
To each other.
Yes.
Quick question, Joey. You've talked about, you call them accidents, the accidents of your life. There's so many little nuggets, I believe, that you said for people that are listening, especially with there's like so much ambiguity in the tech field right now with people changing jobs and things like that. What would you say to someone listening? Like, how did you trust the serendipity of your life? Like, you have so many, one thing fell into another that fell into another. Like, how did you just trust yourself? Like, oh, I'm going on that interview tomorrow. I'm going to meet those people and work at that company. Like, how did that, what are some tips you could give somebody to get that oomph, that excitement that you have?
Well, for starters, I wish I could say it was my own idea. I think a lot of it comes from my parents. All right. So I'm originally from the Philippines. I was born in the Philippines. And when I was really, really young, my parents, who are both doctors, actually everybody in my family is medical. I'm the black sheep of the family by having gone into tech. And they decided to get some experience in the US. So they went, so they went completely, they went to the complete opposite side of the world to get their first experience as professional doctors in the US. And the plan was the original plan, and we followed it anyways for the first part, was to go back to the Philippines and stay there. That was when I was about 4 or 5. And about 3 weeks after we returned to the Philippines, President Marcos declares martial law, and the whole place goes banana republic really, really quickly. And my parents decided, you know what, this probably isn't a safe place to be. And they started looking at going back to the U.S., but the political situation was a bit iffy, and they weren't taking people from the Philippines at the time. And an uncle of mine who lived in Canada said, hey, why not Canada? So there's a point system for Canadian immigration, and if you have skills, you get more points. And if you cross the threshold number of points in Canada, they generally said, come on in. And that's what we did. So like from age 7 and up, I lived in Canada until about 2014. Yeah, 2014 when I moved here to Tampa.
Nice.
So a lot of it just comes from my parents. Sometimes they just encouraged me to go for it, and then I've just learned, and just from watching friends who did. Yeah, it's the friends. My happiest friends are the ones who went for it.
That's a T-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody should design that. We should go to Teespring and go make that up.
Yeah, I like it.
So and ever since then, I have it's just become clear to me for simply by a lot of good things happen simply by showing up. To borrow a really geeky or mathematic term, you know what, you are expanding your luck surface area by going out there, by showing up, by trying the new thing.
Is there? I mean, well, we're very glad that you've joined us in the Tampa Bay area, so that's our benefit. We know that you're pretty active in making your local community, wherever you might be, a really good place for techies. Can you just kind of describe for us some of the things that you do to do that here in Tampa Bay? Some of the things that you do or what you've observed in the tech community here?
Okay. Well, the big one probably is the Tampa Bay Tech Events list. And that was originally a job search tactic more than anything. So I just wanted to be able to say, hey, in an interview, among other things, I happen to produce the list of tech and nerd events in Tampa Bay. So that was basically it, because I think I was one of the job categories I was going for was a developer advocate of some kind. So I figured, what better way than to actually have something that I can point them to, going, see, this is me advocating and representing to developers.
How did the pandemic change that? I mean, it was a good thing going, and then the pandemic changed it. Are we done with that? How did it affect it? And then, do you think are people meeting again in person?
Well, for the pandemic, a lot of events went online, and I specifically modified the list. So I was going, look, you know what, for safety's sake, I'm only showing online events. But I think it helped it a lot, because what happened was people being stuck at home, and they'd seen all the episodes of Tiger King by that point. We're looking for something to do.
Remember Tiger King? Like, that was such a huge thing. And then I haven't thought about it probably in 18 months. It was
never forget Carol Baskin. Right? Never forget it.
Never forget. Well, the thing is, I live a block away from one of the dramatization scenes. So the neon sign Alpine Liquor, when Carol Baskin is walking on Nebraska at 3 a.m, trying to clear her head, and when she meets her first husband, they reenacted it at Alpine Liquor. In Seminole Heights, which
that's
is
awesome.
Walking distance from me.
I remember that scene. I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, that's awesome. Do people go and take pictures by it? They should if they haven't.
Aside from me?
I know one person who's done it. Yeah.
Okay. I have. I was kind of hoping that the pandemic would have calmed down by Halloween 2020, because I was ready to go as Joe Exotic. That was my plan. Go, just cowboy hat and a long blonde wig, and keep screaming, "Give me my gun! Give me my going to Tampa gun!"
Well, we know that you do a lot of performing. Where did that passion come from? Where did your interest in performing kind of come from?
Probably initially, when we have extended family gatherings, there is, after dinner, typically the talent show. The kids have to do some kind of performance. So I just got used to it. And then it was the spring of '99 when I was complaining to a friend of mine. I was going, look, I'm thinking about taking up being a street musician as a hobby. Thought it might be fun. Thought it might be a nice way to meet people. A good number of those people, hopefully women, single at the time. And I was complaining that I had no talent for the guitar, and that you can't drag a piano or synth on the street. They're either too large, or they need amps and power and things like that. And I was saying, you know what, maybe I should go to a pawn shop and get an accordion. And my friend said, I've got one in my basement. It's been sitting there for years. It's doing nothing. Take it.
Your life. I'm loving
I want to have friends who have accordions in their basement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong? Yeah.
So anyways, what happened was I took it out in the street with a friend of mine who'd also decided to pick up the accordion. And we ended up wandering around the club district of Toronto, and passed by Toronto's most notorious goth bar at the time. It doesn't exist anymore. It's a Starbucks now.
Oh, come on.
It's a sad Starbucks, but
that's a completely sad switch.
Yeah, it is completely sad. So it was called the Sanctuary Vampire Sex Bar.
Awesome.
They had their doors open in the afternoon for some reason, and we just wandered in, and it turned out that they were mopping. It was a Saturday, and they were just mopping the floors for the night, and of course, the floors dry quicker with the place opened up. And it was one of the bouncers' birthdays. And he was mopping up, and he was going, "Hey, could you play Happy Birthday for me?" And we did, in a minor key, Marilyn Manson style. And that's when the DJ came out and said, "I have an idea. You guys come back tonight, play something off the Goth Top 20. We'll put you on stage. We'll mic you up. You get any applause at all, I will hook you up with all the beer you can drink."
That is awesome. Do you remember what you played?
Oh, yeah. We ran back to my apartment. We looked through my CD collection. Remember CDs?
Oh, yeah.
And found 9 Inch Nails. And we figured Head Like a Hole. We love that song. And I bet you we could learn that in an afternoon.
Where did you learn to play? Like, just where did you learn the fingering? And like, did you self-taught, or did you get lessons? How did it come about?
Self-taught. But prior to that, of course, I was a keyboard player. And then, that's just from years of keyboard playing. I played with friends' bands, playing. And my specialty has always been playing the uncoolest instrument in the uncoolest way. So it's keyboard, the uncoolest instrument, And when I was with rock and funk bands, I played the keytar. I rather liked being freed up, and so that is the uncoolest instrument in the uncoolest way.
What do you play now still? How do you do you get out in the public and play?
Yeah, all the time. More formally, I play with a local musician, Tom Hood. He's got a ukulele band called Tom Hood and the Tropical Suns. Largely classic rock. Yeah, largely classic rock covers. And I met. I had the good fortune of meeting him at the Tampa Bay Ukulele Getaway a couple of years ago. My wife took up the ukulele during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
And she wanted to go to this ukulele conference. And I said, "Oh yeah, that sounds like fun. Let's go." We got an extra one so I could play along. But they found out that I also brought the accordion with me, and he found out about it, and he said, "Hey, you got to join my band."
Is it the same accordion, or is it a new accordion since your Toronto days? Or...
It's a new accordion. The old accordion, the original accordion, is a little bit beaten up at this point, but it's at my mom's house in Toronto.
Oh, I was going to say, it's put away safely. We need to see that as
it is
evidence of your life. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's in a safe place.
Joy, I've got to ask, because one of your blogs is Global Nerdy. We think that's a rad name, but we probably wouldn't have felt that way about self-styling ourselves as nerds, in the 1980s. What do you think has changed about that term or about nerd culture that makes it like a cool thing now, but it maybe wasn't before?
Well, nerd culture got mainstreamed. All right. Global Nerdy is actually a randomly generated name. They're randomly generated by a program of mine called, it doesn't exist anymore. When I worked at Two Cows, most people think of it as shareware, but their real bread and butter is actually selling domain name registrar capability. So that's how they make their money, and they have an API that lets you feed it. You feed it some text, a couple of words, and it spits out available domain names. And I have a little front end program called the Duke of Earl, URL. And,
that's awesome. That's awesome. The Duke of Earl.
And what it let you do was, it would let you just enter some terms. It would spit back some domain names for you. So it was it basically just gave a front end to that API, and I used it myself to come up with the name for my tech site, Global Nerdy. As far as being a nerd these days, it's probably because of the prevalence of the internet and the fact that we are now in a deeply technological society, and we're all wandering around with supercomputers in our pockets. And nerd culture has just taken over. The day I truly realized it happened was when I was on the subway in Toronto, and I overheard a conversation between two girls in junior high, and one was quizzing the other on characters from the Lord of the Rings movie. She was going to her friend, yeah, okay, the cute elf, what's his name? She's going, I don't know, I don't remember. She's going, it's Legolas. and then she says, what about the dwarf? You got to remember the dwarf's name. She's going, no, I don't remember. And she said, it's Gimli. You have to know this stuff if you want to be cool.
Wow.
And I was going, where was this when I was in high school?
I think those, I don't know if those movies were an expression of what had already happened or if they helped cause the shift, because after, on the other end of the Lord of the Rings, you've got Marvel Universe explodes because it really hadn't happened beforehand. But I think that's what people point to now as being the greatest expression of nerd culture. Is like, look, these comic book, which were sort of marginalized, are now, they couldn't be more mainstream. I think the Lord of the Rings movie, it might have been a cause.
I think the Lord of the Rings helped, but I also think that, the Spider-Man and X-Men movies from the early 2000s also helped. And I think the other thing that helped was Napster. Napster. You have to remember that Sean Fanning would get mobbed by fans at whenever he went outside, and prior to that, it's kind of hard imagining a programmer getting mobbed. I mean,
I think the more access we have to people shows us that more people are nerdy than not. You know what I mean? Like the more the world, like social media, the more we get exposed. You don't just have this one dynamic of what it means to be a cool person. Like now you're seeing like my son's obsessed with anime, and to see how many kids are obsessed with anime, and it's like, I guess I have to learn who Naruto is, but you know what I mean? I have to figure these things out. But I think it's just the more access that we have to each other that you don't have to be this one dimension person. I can like Lord of the Rings and then also have a varsity jacket on. Like there's more dimensions to my personality than they used to depict before the internet exploded.
Oh yeah, exactly. It gave us access. Yeah, it gave us access to a lot of things that we'd never see before. But I think that was kind of building through. I think that was kind of building up as the internet grew and things like that. I mean, consider how big rap is in the suburbs, right? Maybe
that's a good
exactly.
Yeah, that's a good parallel to it, right? It had to get there, and that's not, in a large way, not different from anime becoming popular in Tampa Bay, right? My Tasha, same as you, my 13-year-old daughter is a huge fan and knows more about that than she knows about what's on CBS. I mean, it's because they can access it just as easily. There's no difference to them if they open a device to seeing something that's going to be out on broadcast or cable versus getting something that's streamed from Netflix or from Amazon Prime or something. To them, we can access the information the same way. Whereas before you had to maybe go to a specialized, video store to go get a copy of a real Japanese anime, and then it might not be translated, or you couldn't play it right or something like that. But now it's just so accessible.
Yeah, you had to hunt it down. I mean, for the longest time, mainstream anime in the U.S. was pretty much limited to, in the late 80s, that was Robotech. And then in the mid-90s, Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon. That made my heart smile.
All right, well, I think at this time we'll take a short break. And when we return, we're going to go through the lifestyle polygraph with Joey. So everybody, please stay with us.
You're listening to the No Password Required podcast. We cover cybersecurity and a lot of other stuff.
Welcome back, Joey. Are you ready for the lifestyle polygraph?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You've talked a lot about music, so this one is, what 3 people would you choose to make the ultimate rock band, and what cover song would be your first release?
Oh, wow. I would probably... Okay, I'd have to go with Weird Al. There is no... There's no doubt about it. I would definitely have to take Weird Al on. I would definitely add him. So he is my accordion hero.
Accordion royalty in a lot of ways.
Yes, exactly. I'd also have to go with, just because he's a really big part of my being an accordion player anyways in the first place, Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails.
Ooh.
Because he has done all sorts of things. I mean, from doing the goth band stuff to now being an Apple spokesperson for Apple Music, and let's see now, somehow winning both country and hip hop awards for Old Town Road, and for doing music for films, even Disney films.
Oh, cool!
So. So I believe he was involved with Soul, the Disney film Soul.
Oh, that's
and he did the music for the Watchmen TV series.
Oh wow! Okay,
that was so good.
Yeah, and he's got range, and he sounds like he'd be interesting to play with. And then last but not least, we need to bring him back from the great beyond, but we need Prince.
Ooh, this is a very interesting mix-up.
I've always wanted to jam with Prince. Prince is also a brilliant multi-instrumentalist. He's got a band around him, but that's for the live stuff. When he's recording, most of it is him. He's playing most of the instruments.
I would love to see him and Weird Al together too. See what they would create. So
Yeah,
creative.
and
That would be great.
Yeah.
what song are we releasing? What cover song with these three amazing, talented people that you're going to be joining up with? What is the cover song?
I would have to see what we would do with probably the simplest, dumbest, but catchiest song, nonetheless, Louie Louie.
Oh, okay.
Could get Prince to do a 2-minute guitar solo too in there.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
Awesome.
There'd be a guitar solo, and Trent could also really produce it and give it a really edgy sound. But it's so simple yet it's so catchy. In fact, and that's probably why it's so catchy. I think there's a quote by Eminem where he actually says, "If I'm working on a song and it's beginning to annoy me, I know it's going to be a hit."
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got an awesome cover song with the greatest band ever. What is something awesome in Canada that has not made it to America?
You mean aside from healthcare?
Oh, ooh,
oh man, that's a pretty sick burn. All right, fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough.
The other thing I would actually say is Nanaimo bars.
Oh, what is a candy bar?
No, it's kind of a brownie-like thing, but it's got layers. So there is a cakey brownie-like chocolate layer at the bottom, and then a coconut cream layer in the middle, and then a layer of just chocolate on top, and then coconut.
Are they made by a brand, or is it just something that people cook, like they bake themselves?
No, it's something people cook.
Oh wow! Okay.
It has the same name as a town in British Columbia called Nanaimo. So in the Pacific Northwest, deep in the Rockies.
Okay.
Interesting.
Oh, I got to try to make these.
Yeah. Look up a recipe.
Okay.
They are great, and for some reason never found its way here. Like at least poutine has. I think a lot of it's because of the snowbirds from Ontario and Quebec. They brought it down. So that's fries with cheese curds and gravy.
But we don't get as many folks from Western Canada coming down maybe to Florida. We got to get them. Yeah, we've got to.
Yeah. We should get some Vancouverites, some people from British Columbia, to come on down.
Interesting. So one thing that I would like to know, and we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, what is the benefit of being a person that says yes? You just drop everything and go. That has pretty much been your story. What's been the greatest benefit of living that type of life?
Well, for starters, it's how I met my wife.
Oh,
By saying yes and going because I got invited on this going on a multi-city tour of bar camp events. These are unconferences where there's no set agenda until the day of, because the agenda is set by people going, "Hey, I have a topic I'd like to present on," and then you get a time slot in a room, and people decide whether they want to go attend your session or not. One of the cities we were at on this multi-city tour was Tampa, and that's where I met my wife.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And does she kind of live in that same philosophy as you? It sounds like she picked up ukulele during the pandemic. So you sound like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, that's why we get along together. So, I mean, later on, she decided at one point to come up and visit Toronto. She was on a work trip in Rochester, which is just on the other side of the U.S.-Canada border, and decided to pay a visit. And that's when we really hit it off. And because at that point I said, "Look, you can come up, but I'm going to be busy on the Saturday. I'm going to a friend's wedding." Then it occurred to me, "Why don't you come along? You be my plus one."
Oh, that's the person that says yes. Okay.
Yeah. No, saying yes is important, because I don't know if you've seen I think they publish this story every year, something where they interview people in old folks' homes and ask them about their regrets. And it's always the things they did not do. I should have done this. I should I should have gone there. I should have.
That's beautiful,
You
because
know,
that is a good model to keep in life, and you don't want to be that person that leaves that on your, in the past.
yeah,
So,
exactly. My grandmother's favorite poet was Longfellow, and I think he's got a line in one of his poems saying about the saddest words are what could have been.
mm, that is true. With all that we've talked about with music, I would love to see if we could finish in style. I see the pianos behind you. Is you said you've got a new accordion? Are you going to bless us with some? Uh, yes. Oh, it's
That
fancy.
is
Oh,
a
look at the
nice
colors.
looking
Look at this.
instrument.
We've got the blues. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a blue
Can you
pattern.
share
Wow.
some of your experience, your music with us? Like just a couple of chords, would you mind?
sure. So, anyways, this is a lucky find from the Oldsmar flea market.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
There's a guy there who sells used wheelchairs at new wheelchair prices. And he, yeah, don't buy a wheelchair from him. You can get better deals elsewhere. But he had this accordion there.
Oh, it sounds great.
Oh, I love it.
And yeah, he had no idea what to do with it. And I said, look, $150 cash, I'll take it off your hands. And he was happy to let it.
And it's beautiful. Is that his decoration, or you spent the time and put these, cover the keys and put the love on it?
Oh, no, actually, this is part of the accordion. So this is fake.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's plastic mother of pearl. I call it mother of toilet seat. And yeah, but it is following the traditional accordion design style. They haven't changed. They really haven't changed that much since, say, 1940. So at that point, they all sort of generally have this look like the front end of a 1950 Chevy, the grill. You have to have the grill work and that sort of thing. They haven't changed. They attempted to do it in the 60s. There are some Dayglow Paisley accordions out there if you can find them. I have been looking.
That's awesome.
But yeah, generally they tend to have this very classic look.
I love it. You are a man of many lives. One of the things I want to ask you, the last question, the most important question, is what Star Wars character do you relate most to? Who's your favorite character, and which character do you relate the most with?
Okay, well, I can give you an easy answer and a hard answer. Okay. All right, I'll go with the easy one. The easy one, the one I most relate to, is actually Han Solo. I like him. He is the interesting character. Yes, he doesn't have the Force powers. Yes, he is technically not the main character. But as cool as Luke Skywalker is, he's kind of bland because he's supposed to be the character you kind of pour yourself into. But I like Han Solo, especially, basically, never tell me the odds. He's willing to just go for it, and he's actually good at building a bunch of friends around him. But for the hard answer, okay, these are way more obscure characters. The first one I'd have to say is Max Rebo. So he's the blue elephant looking like keyboard player.
He plays the super keyboard thing. Yeah, with all the...
Yeah, exactly. But, he knows he's working for a gangster, but he's got bills to pay, and he's just trying to keep his head down and keep the band going. I feel for him.
Okay, that's a good mixture. This has been wonderful. Oh, you have another interesting one?
Just two more.
All right, let's go.
Two more favorite Star Wars characters. The other one I had to look. The other ones I had to look up their names. One is Elian Sleazebagano.
I don't know who that is.
He's the guy who attempts to sell Obi-Wan death sticks at that bar at Tatooine. Hey man, you want to buy some death sticks? I love
you as a name.
That takes unmitigated gall. Like basically, it's like trying to sell weed to a cop. Like the guy is clear.
Yes.
He's in uniform. He knows.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Please Baggio.
Yeah. They actually gave him the name Sleaze Bagano.
That's what I'm more concerned about.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then finally, I would say, let's see, Force Awakens. Actually, the nurse who's bandaging Chewie. She has the best line in the movie. Oh, you must have been so brave. Taking really, really good care.
Yeah.
Taking really, really good care of the customer. I have to respect that.
I love it. That's a lot of different dimensions. So we've got a sleaze bag, a man that's working for a gangster, and then a kind woman wrapping a man up. I like it. Okay, I'll take it.
Well,
one thing I also need to take are what are the ways that people can get in contact with you? We've had a wonderful time with you. I know our listeners want to connect with you, follow you on any social media platforms, and share any kind of connection. Tell us how.
Okay, well, let's see. On Twitter, more on Mastodon these days. If you search for Accordion Guy, and remember, it's an O in accordion, not an A after the first letter. Let's see now. JoeyDeVilla.com is my personal blog. GlobalNerdy.com is my tech blog, and that's where the Tampa Bay Tech events list also is. And just keep an eye on that, because that's probably the easiest way to find me, because I post that once a week, and a lot of people consult it, and it's probably the easiest way to find me on Google.
Awesome. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and motivating us to say yes in life.
Yes, say yes.
Thank you, Joey. This was great. That brings us to the end of the program. Thank you for joining us. First and foremost, I have to thank my co-host, Tashya Denose, for stepping in for Ernie Ferraresso today. Thank you also to our guest, Joey deVilla, Tampa Bay's Weird Al of developer relations. Please rate, review, and subscribe to No Password Required podcast. You can find us on social media at No Password Pod. I'm Jack Clabby. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for listening to the No Password Required podcast. The show is produced by Cyber Florida. A special thanks goes out to our friends at Carlton Fields and Second Watch. If you would like to learn more about the show, visit our website at cyberflorida.org/pod. And if you still need more show content, check out our social media at No Password Pod.